all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown. With me for the very first time is our glorious Goblin. Say hi, glorious Goblin.
Hi.
Jason, thank you so much for joining me. This is so exciting. I am a huge fan of Goblin Mode. I have to admit right off the bat, I've still only seen the first episode. I was gonna watch more last night, and I started watching Kevin Can F Himself on Netflix, and I couldn't stop myself. I don't know what happened, but it's
both addictive shows. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah. It's stop letting me just play the next episode. But I wanted to start. What's Weird Al like?
Weird Al, he's the best. He was my childhood hero, and then I got to meet him and work with him, and that was an incredible part of my life. He's the kindest person I've ever spoken to. I swear to God.
That's amazing. For folks who don't know, which is usually how I always like to start my interviews, with a real weird question that no one has context for. You were the assistant camera on Tacky. I scrolled deep on your IMDb page.
My IMDb page is the most random and also least updated thing on the planet, but I am very proud that somebody clocked that. I was the first assistant camera on Tacky.
It's such a good music video. If you're watching this right now, pause this, go watch the 2-minute, 55-minute one-take video, then come back. Because, I remembered it when I saw that pop up. I was like, oh, I remember that video. And then, I went and watched it. And I was like, oh, that's insane, especially for an AC. Someone in charge of, hey, we got to make sure everything works. What was that like? What do you remember of it?
It was an incredible experience. It was shot, I think, in the Hollywood Theater. It was in a very old, beautiful theater, and it was so many great people was in it. You know, Weird Al, Jack Black, Margaret Cho, and we had a very small crew doing this very ambitious video. And one of my fondest memories is it really is a one take. So that shot where you see sort of Weird Al go to the elevator, and then people go into the elevator, and you're on. I think it was Kristen Shaw.
Yep,
is in the elevator, and we're going down the elevator. Weird Al is booking down flights of stairs, full sprint, and I'm right behind him because the technology at the time wasn't amazing. So I had to be kind of close to the camera to pull focus, but I couldn't be in the elevator, and the elevator was moving, and the camera was in the elevator. So I was running down the stairs with Weird Al, trying to pull focus and trying to figure things out. And it was an insane job, and I'll never forget it.
That's so much fun. Yeah, it's all one take. I think it's 2 minutes 55 seconds. A bunch of people in it. Yeah, at one point Weird Al bounces off the video, sprints down 5 flights of stairs, changes clothes while doing it. With an elevator that is perfectly timed for the bridge of the song, which is also a wild concept of we needed the 5-flight elevator to actually match up with how long Kristen Shaw's part is. And then a beardless Jack Black, which I know what he looks like without a beard, but it still really threw me off when he jumped into screen. I was like, oh yeah, this video's old. He's been growing that beard for a while.
Absolutely.
It's so much fun, and so complicated. I actually then ended up tracking down a making of little not documentary, but a Weird Al talking about the making of, and said it was 6 takes. Then it was the final take that you ended up using, but that there were multiple clean takes of of that whole music video, which is astonishing because it is so complicated.
Yeah, it really was hats off to our team, who I think was the DP at the time, and the whole team. That was the family at Nerdist, and I was there for a while, and everybody just killed it making that video.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Well, speaking of things that are fantastic, don't tell anyone this, but Tippy is my favorite of the PCs.
I'm afraid I'm going to tell everybody that. You know what I mean? It's gone straight to my head. And, I take a lot of pride in that. I love
the show's called Goblin Mode. You're the Goblin. You're the titular Goblin. Who the other skeleton? It's not called Skeleton Mode.
Well, there was a moment where, when Amy came up with sort of we had to pick any creature we could, right? Any minion or creature we could. There was a moment where we all thought about not being goblins. Like all of us, we're not goblins. But then I was like, it's called Goblin Mode. I feel like one of us should be a goblin. So I raised my hand and volunteered.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, can you walk me through what character creation was like for Tippy? How you came to that, and sort of like that original process of getting in there.
Yeah, Tippy building Tippy was like a really really fun experience because I play a lot of D&D just in my personal life, and I think the best part about D&D is you get to be these like heroes and adventurers, and even at level 1, you're cooler than most people, right? And I love the idea that we were coming at character creation from the perspective of like level 1 is like level negative 100 to like a normal like a normal adventure. And so I was like, what is going to be like a goblin who has a lot of room to grow? And I just thought of, and I'd never played the Artificer before. And so I wanted to play like sort of a dorky goblin version of me, and I'm already dorky. So it was an easy ask. But yeah, it was really thinking about making this sort of shy, anxious, nervous goblin who didn't even want to be a minion in the first place. Go on this like epic journey, and I thought that was cool. So that's where Tippy was born.
I love it. Yeah, for folks, I've talked to Amy and Danielle at this point, and scolded is the wrong word, but a choice for Danielle of like, I'm gonna make a bard with like an 11 charisma or whatever it is. It's like, oh no, like I
I
get you're
think
gonna get better, but ooh, that's a choice to start.
well, the best part about this is everybody had played so much D&D that we all went into it, and Dan and Danielle are such amazing players, but we all went like, we can't do the thing where we're like, we're gonna have the perfect party composition, and there's gonna be healer and a tank. Like, we wanted to all be absolutely useless in everything we do, and like every choice that Danielle makes as Busy is incredible. Same thing with Dan as Fibs, and I think that was the theme, which is like these guys really don't know what they're doing. So when you say like bard or like paladin, that's to them the same as like that chef and like doorman. Like they have
Yeah.
no idea what any of that stuff is. So of course you'd be a bard with no charisma. That's the best thing you can be.
Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, the world itself is, um, well, can I ask you to describe it? That way, I don't have to like. There isn't a clip of me explaining the game
Oh my
to
God.
people.
The world, it's such a rich world that Amy Warpal, our glorious GM, created. But in a nutshell, but just picture a world where the I guess the world has been like ruined by this big cataclysmic event, and now there's like a big desolate wasteland and little towns in between. But the world that we're playing in is a world where um, the main characters are like the henchmen or the minions in like a dungeon that would usually be resigned to doing the most menial tasks, like moving rocks from one pile to the next, or like bringing the mail to your local necromancer. You know what I mean? And so that's the world we're in, and Goblin Mode is three little minions finding out that the world's much bigger than the walls of their dungeon, and we travel all over the place to like towns like Neckbrecca, and it's like a crazy trading town with like airships to crazy boggy swampy places and underwater cities. So it's quite like a vast adventure.
Yeah, when I talk to Amy, a lot of emphasis, obviously, on like the agency of these characters, going from what she describes as video game code of like,
Mm-hmm.
you walk this way, you walk that way, you stop for 3 seconds, you walk back. Like it's like that is your job in the dungeon. And now that the BBEG has been defeated, you're out of a job, and becoming like your own characters. What was that like when that sort of idea then got like thrown to you of like, hey, you're going to start off as less than level 1, you're going to start off as minion characters who weren't even important and now have to figure out everything about the world.
I love. I was so excited. First, I was so honored to be asked to join this thing because Danielle and Dan and Amy, they're so a part of this world of like tabletop role playing games, and I'm just a fan of playing tabletop role playing games, and so it was nice to get to come in and do this. But um, it was awesome because I love playing characters in my personal plays that are super super flawed, but not in like just an emotional way, in like a literal, maybe a physical way, or maybe a detriment to the party because they're cowards, or they're uh, dumb. You know what I mean? And Tippy is a little bit of everything, and yeah, I love it.
Yeah, we should say why his name is Tippy,
Yeah,
which
yes.
is
Tippy is called Tippy because Tippy hoards everything on his back, and he carries multiple packs that are literally twice the size of his chubby little body, and it tips him to one side most of
so
the time
good.
he's living life. So it's like he's called Tippy. And I would also
Uh,
imagine like goblins have silly little nicknames for each other, like maybe the goblin who catches frogs is called Froggy, so Tippy's
yeah,
called Tippy.
Tippy's called Tippy. That just makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
We did hit a like I don't want to say like surprising, but a more emotional beats than I expected in the first episode. Because when I talked to Danielle, it was before the second episode had even come out. And so I was like, yeah, it's goofs. It's goofs all the way down. She's like, we do eventually do stuff. The first episode is a lot of goofs. But there was still like Tippy's locket and things that like you like come across
Right.
that like hit and you're like, oh no, there are going to be sad parts too. And I was wondering like what it's like for you when you have a character as silly as, I mean, literally named Tippy because he tips to one side, and then also is like, oh, also very serious moments. How does that interplay feel when you're coming up
Oh,
with that?
I love that. That's what I live for in D and D, and just any storytelling in general is like watching these fun, jovial characters that actually have to deal with like their emotions. Um, I think you're in for a lot of that in Goblin Mode. Surprisingly, there's a lot of like breaks in the story where there's quite emotional scenes, and I mean like goofs as they are. Like episode one, we all deal with each the death of our best friends, which I think is pretty crazy, right? And that's a lot to process, even as a little goblin. Like we're starting on absolute like the worst day of their lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's fun to have to like try to see how a character, even as ridiculous as Tippy, is going to have to deal with like the murder of his best oozed friend, right? Or
Yeah.
him being out of a job now because his necromancer has gone missing.
Yeah. I mean, and very immediately, I mentioned this to Danielle, but I mean, the group of you going from we don't understand what a union is, literally Dan saying like confusing union for the name of the necromancer, but then immediately being like, but we're not scabs. Like I want it to be clear, we don't understand what unions are, but we will not cross this line. It's just
Right.
such a great like bit that like really tickled me in that episode. Um, yeah, I'm super curious. Well, first of all, does it feel like bullying that they put you on your own side of the table and Dan and Danielle? Is it like because the first three letters they share for their name and they're like, it's only DANs over here?
They refused to sit with me. It was a shot to the gut, but I'll live. No, I actually kind of like being in my own little island because I feel like that's how Tippy feels in a weird way. Like he feels like, oh, he has friends, but are they his friends, or is he on his own?
Mhm.
But the other reason why I'm on that side is that we get special guests that come on the show later on. If you guys watch, there's an empty fourth chair, and that's reserved for some special friends that come and join us.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, one of the things that I also I appreciate so much is 90-minute to 2 hour long episodes. Like, just like right in the sweet spot of like, I'm not going to keep up. Like, I won't be able to stay current because I have a 3-year-old. I'm not current on anything.
Right.
But like, I got a shot at like sticking through to the end when there's not like oops, 5-hour episode in the middle. I'm like, oh no, this is going to take me a month to get through. So let me just say I appreciate it.
Yeah.
that you've kept it more compact. Obviously, that was by design, not accidental. Of like, hey, we want to make this.
Mhm.
What was that thought process? I mean, especially if like we're relaunching Geek and Sundry under like this show. Basically, we want it to be approachable and easily consumable.
I think it comes out of a place of earnestness, right? Like earnestly wanting to play like a good length of a session, but also not making a show that just feels like it's only there to be like a clip farm, where we're only going to be releasing things as like TikTok clips or whatever. However it's done these days. I think it comes from a place of like this is a good length for this episode, and we see them as like episodes, right, of a show. We really do see them as like, okay, that's chapter one done, right? Now chapter two. And I love that you like the length, because a big worry when doing anything like this is like, who's going to watch and who's going to stay invested, and is it too long? But I personally like the length, and I'm hoping people like it too.
Yeah, I mean, everyone that I've heard talking about it has had nothing but positive things to say, including obviously, I mean, besides just like the general premise and everything else, but also like stunning audio design, like beautiful set, just like really came out swinging to like show off, like, hey, we're serious about this.
Yeah, the audio design is so good. The shout out to Matt Karen, who is both the editor and sort of like he's the Wizard of Oz behind it all, right? He's the one who adds all the sounds and all the effects. I've recently listened. If people don't know this, you can also listen to Goblin Mode as a podcast, and it's available wherever you get podcasts. And I'm not, I consume a lot of like nonfiction, boring podcasts about history. But but like I have been listening to Goblin Mode as a podcast, and the sound design is so good, and it reminds me of like an old radio play
Mhm.
almost, and I'm drawn in by that. So shout out to Matt. He did such a great job.
Yeah, I would say I listen to a lot of actual plays, and it is. I mean, I put it up with any other actual play in terms of sound
Amazing.
design,
Thank
which
you.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, such I think, important thing, because there are so many actual plays of
Yes.
like, we gotta, not only do you need a story to stand out, but you also need to be like on par or better with like the 100 other shows that people could spend their time watching.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah. What was? I mean, I guess jumping back. Look, I'm not the best interviewer. Like my notes
Yeah.
are not
This
good.
this is the best interview Tippy's ever done. What are you talking about? I've ever done.
Yes. But jumping back to like when you got called in originally,
Yeah.
obviously you knew Dan.
Hmm.
I'm assuming you knew Amy as well. Did you know Danielle, or was that like a new connection?
That's a new connection. Danielle and I think knew of each other, right? And we're definitely move around in the same circles of people. I've seen her work, and I'm such a big fan. She's her person. She's so funny, and she's such a like a. What's awesome is like both Dan and Danielle are so quick. They're such quick-witted people who are so fast at coming up with stuff. And it was cool to meet a person and feel like we just immediately clicked. Like, um, even in that play. I mean, we had a session zero that wasn't on camera, and it was just a blast. And I think that's where we kind of all looked at each other and we're like, "Yeah, this is going to work out. Like, this is going to be a fun experience." But no, it was cool. Interacting with Dan and Amy. I've in the past, I've been on the other side of the camera, right, filming them or directing them for something else, because I used to work at Nerdist and Geek and Sundry. But now sitting down and playing with them, it's such a awesome experience. And Danielle's such a great fit to this whole thing. Sorry, there's a dog barking right now. I don't know if
All
you can
good.
hear it.
Very shortly, my wife and child are going to come home, and when they open the garage door, there will be a dog barking here as well. So,
Oh, great! We'll have a bark off. Why not?
yeah, it'll be perfect. Yeah, yeah, I think Danielle, obviously. Well, I mean, huge week. It was just like a huge time to have Danielle in anything, because Misfits and
Yeah.
Magic 2 is coming to Dimension
Yes.
20. Drops today. The day we are recording this, the first episode will be dropping.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like it's just funny because I think Goblin Mode. I think the first episode the week dropped the week of the Misfits and Magic 2 trailer, and I was like, boy,
Yeah,
it's a good week to have Danielle Radford like on a
I
show
know.
of yours, because you just grab that SEO that people are looking for her.
Yeah. Yes, please, please.
Yeah, yeah.
Danielle, share the love, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I am curious. What was it like then, transitioning from behind the camera to front of the camera? Which do you prefer, or is it just a matter of both are fun?
I think both are fun. I don't, like I consider myself more of a creator that operates behind the camera. And that's sort of where my hopes and dreams and aspirations lie. But I've been in front of the camera before, and I'm no stranger to it. And I love comedy and all things comedy. I've done a lot of sketch comedy, but I really just was looking forward to, like, whether it was on camera or off camera, just honestly playing this game with this group of people. Um, that's really what it was about for me. And like the cameras and the set was like, that was nice, but playing the game was the best part.
Yeah, I mean, you get to sit down with Amy. My goodness, what a talent! Just
Gosh,
like,
yeah,
um, this was, I guess, this is the first I've seen her play a bunch, but I'd never seen her DM before. And so, like, getting to see her just like pop in and out of voices, even like in a conversation with each other, such a, I struggle with it so much in like my own
yeah,
games where I'm like, okay, no,
yeah.
hold on. Okay, got it. And obviously, you can edit around that in an actual play. But boy, she's talented, huh? That's not really a
She's
question, but
I agree. I agree. I think Amy is very, very, very talented, and she knows that. And I think what's so great about Amy is that we sometimes I worry that, like, the energy of me, Dan, and Danielle when we do click on something, it's like, oh, this is just like raw chaos. This is just us. We forgot we're on a show, and we're now um, maybe ruining this game. Like, I don't know. Has the bit gone too far? And Amy's ability to just pull it back into the story is that deserves an award. You know what I mean? She's so good at that. But obviously, she's such a good storyteller, and her voices are amazing.
yeah, yeah, it's fantastic. I guess, yeah. I mean, that is actually one of the other things I want to know about. How were the vibes at the table? Seems very good.
So good. So good, too good. The goofs were goofing. We couldn't stop at times, and yeah, there are definitely episodes where I was like, I've ruined this. I've ruined this for us all, and it wasn't the case. It wasn't the case, but the vibes are so good, and even behind the camera, like our team, Graham, who directed the show, and Matt. It just really does feel like everybody involved is like one group of friends. Like they're so good at editing this stuff out, but like hearing like a camera guy laugh, or like hearing our sound guy laugh at a bit that we're doing at the table is really fun, and like that gives us so much energy.
Yeah. Oh man. Have you seen any fan art yet of Tippy, or is it too early for fan art yet?
I think it's too early, but I'm open to it. Please, if you want to do fan art, I really want to see.
Do you have is the group chat like ready to go of just like start sharing fan art the moment you see it?
100%, 100%.
Yeah,
I think we've been sharing just like comments we see that really make our day. Like, we've seen a lot of positivity, and I really hope that keeps going.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember after I'd interviewed Amy before Danielle, and then when I was talking to Danielle, she talked about like that you stuck your foot in it, and then had to explain it's the black variation of that phrase, not what my community might think of in terms of like, oh, that seems bad, and she's like, no, 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 very good thing. I'm like, okay, never mind. Yeah, it feels like it's just an absolute blast, and that yeah, everyone is still. I mean, the reason we're chatting is because Amy was like, "Oh, you talked to Danielle? Do you want to talk to everyone else?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." Do you? She's like, "Great, I'll send an email." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it seems like a very supportive, good group of folks,
It
which is
honestly
a
is.
dream.
Honestly is. Yeah. And Dan and Amy and I go way back. Like, we've known each other for so long. And Danielle, I haven't known as long, but I know they know each other for long periods of time. So it does feel like there's this big, good group energy of like old friends playing a game. It feels
Yeah.
great.
That is exactly what the vibes are at the table, at least to a viewer, which does feel. I mean, it's fun. I mean, I think it's the reason why a lot of the shows that have become really successful are really successful is because the vibes are like, hey, I'm watching really cool, smart, funny people who are also friends try to make their friends laugh, which is a very fun thing to watch. Like, what can I do to make Dan Casey sitting across from me laugh at a bit,
Yeah,
whatever it is.
yeah.
Um, I'm super curious how you got started in like D&D, TTRPG spaces. Like what is your origin story?
Yeah, I've always been fascinated. I'm a late bloomer. I've always been fascinated in D&D. I played a lot of video games growing up, but what's funny, when I was growing up as a kid, I had a lot of the books because they would be at my local library somehow,
Mhm.
like player handbooks of like different TTRPGs that like nobody knew. There was one called like Legend of the Five Rings or something. It was like samurai themed, and I would just read them and be like, well, what are these like rule books and like what are these weapons? Like what are dice? But I never had dice and I never had a group of people to play it with. Um, and I remember I was like 12 and I went to my local comic book shop and it was called Amazing Stories. It's not around anymore. But I walked in and it was like usually it's like a very very square little comic book shop where there's every wall has like comics and there's a big open space in the middle, and I remember walking in and there was a table of just like people playing D&D, and I was like, what is that? And people are doing voices and I was like, this is so freaking cool. But I didn't get to actually play my first game until I was like deep in my 20s, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And then when I finally played, I just got addicted to it, and I would DM my own games, and it was really cool working at Nerdist and Geek and Sundry, where that was kind of happening in the periphery, with Critical Role and everybody else who was like making amazing tabletop stuff. So it's been around in my life for a long time, and I didn't really start to play it consistently until only really a couple of years ago. And now it's like I can't imagine my life without it. And I preach the gospel of TTRPG to anybody who'll listen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, I played once in high school where someone was like, "Hey, we think you'd like this," and I was like, "Yeah, that was fun." And then like there was no one else to play with, so like just never happened again. And then like in my I guess late 20s, I started looking actively for games, and like in my
Yeah,
30s, like found a consistent group. And I was like, "Oh, this is the best. Why did I wait so long?
I know.
Like I could have been having so much more fun." But yeah, super super fun. What were those old Geek and Sundry days like, where Critical Role, I mean, just exploded out of nowhere, and just, I mean, what was it like back then?
It was awesome to watch, and it's exactly sort of the energy that I'm describing now, which it just felt like a bunch of friends making stuff together. And to clarify, like I was more the stuff I made was more on the nerdist side of the fence,
Mhm.
and so it was. But I was there with everybody in the same building, and it was cool watching these people go from just like very hodgepodge setup to what it is now. But yeah, it was. I mean, like, how can you complain? You walk into work and there's people rolling dice, and I'm like, that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
so cool. So the energy was great back then, and the internet is a fickle beast, and it went away for a second, but I'm glad it's back, and I'm glad I can be a part of that too.
Yeah, yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, I remember, and when this first got announced, I was like, "Oh, that's so cool!" And then like I was like, "Oh, that's so cool! Geek and Sundry's coming back." And then I had a moment of panic where I was like, "Oh, have they been like active this whole
Yes.
time?" And and I'm just like, I'm gonna look stupid if I say that in an interview, and someone's gonna be like, "Actually, we've been producing."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh no!" But like I wouldn't. I looked it up. I was like, "Oh no, no!" Like there's like a dip of production, in terms of what they were doing. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
think
mean.
I think under certain circumstances, a lot of those people would have just stayed there for forever making cool stuff if they could. But fate had it as it was that they had to like disperse and go around, and now they're all making great things, and they all have their own tabletop shows, or they've gone on to other tabletop shows, or they're working for Critical Role, and so I think everybody landed in a place that was awesome, and but it felt weird that Geek and Sundry to me like didn't have anything. Sorry, 2 seconds. What I was saying is it felt weird to me that it was like, oh, here's this like TTRPG community that's like growing in spades, and then you've got like Baldur's Gate, and you have people who have never even thought about TTRPGs like actually experiencing what it's like now. And it felt weird that like Geek and Sundry wasn't part of that conversation yet. So it's cool that now maybe there's an opportunity for this community to regrow and rebuild itself.
Yeah, it was super cool to see like the Geek and Sundry website and social channels get active again. Be like, oh yeah, you see so many of those things that just like, you're like, oh yeah, I remember Cracked, and where are they now? Like those kinds of like websites where you're like, that was fun. What happened to that? It's fun to see one where you're like, oh, that's fun. Oh, they're doing things again, and it's cool.
Yeah.
Great. So much fun. Well, first of all, obviously, a very important question: what kind of dog and dog's name is barking in the background?
That's Casper. He's a little Maltese mix. He's a sweet little boy, and he's the best. He's the best.
Lovely. Yeah.
What about you? What dog's about to come through the door?
Boston Terrier named PD, short for Pizza Dog, named
Pizza
after
Dog?
the Hawkeye comics and then eventual TV show. Although we did have him before the TV show came out, so
so he claimed the copyright now.
Yeah.
Time to cash
the copyright we took from Matt Fraction. I will say I was complaining about this literally today. I was like, vets, you have to stop writing the dog's name and just like put my name on the list. Because when I call to make an appointment and I'm like, it's PD, they're like, Petey. I'm like, no, it's just the 2 letters. And I don't know if you put periods in there or not. Please just write my name down. And then in a note, put the dog's name. I'm begging you. But yeah, that was the end of not question for sure.
No, please. I will talk about dogs all day.
Yeah, I mean, look. Yeah, no, please do. Like, how old's Casper? Where'd you get Casper? The important question. This genuinely is what people would enjoy more than me asking you questions on anything else.
No, Casper belongs to my partner, and Casper came into my life 2 years ago. I believe Casper's turning 7, so he's a teenager, I think.
Yeah.
In my mind, he's a teenager. That's teenagers. I don't know how dog math works, and I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Casper is I've always wanted to have a dog or to be around a dog. I'm a cat person. I'm an animal person. I had a cat for a long time. And now there's a dog in my life, and it's the best. What about Petey? How old is Petey?
Oh boy, I think Petey turned 7 in January. I'm trying to do the math in my head. Yeah, because we got him January 2017. That's 7, right? My wife and I got him before we had gotten married, and it was a birthday present. She'd wanted a dog. At the time, I had a pet pig, who's sadly not around anymore. Yeah.
What was the pet pig?
His name was Mortimer. It was like a mini potbelly, which means he weighed 80 pounds. Because that's what mini means in pig. Like the pictures you see of like a pig in a teacup, that's a piglet. That's a baby. It's going to get so much bigger. But yeah, it was weird. It was like super important that like I got like it feels weird to even say, but like getting a pure breed dog was important because some dog breeds are bred to hunt pigs, and like that instinct kicks in. And so like it was really important to be like, okay, I think a blue heeler is one of them. Be like, he cannot have blue heeler blood like in his body. We can't have that instinct kick in. So I had to like find a lovely grandma who had a Boston Terrier who had. The pup had I think like 4 or 5 dogs, and she was given 2 of them to her grandkids and was selling the other 3 on Craigslist. And I was like, great, done. Let's do this.
Wow. That's awesome. I hope one day I too will have a pet pig. That sounds incredible.
They're very smart. Very fun, but very smart. Yeah, when my wife met me, I lived in an apartment with my pet pig, which I do not recommend because they are very destructive. But if I was playing, God, it must have been I'm trying to think if it was PS2 or PS3, one of the systems, whatever it was, it's over a decade at this point ago.
Yeah.
He knew that if he hit his nose on the right spot of it, it would eject the disc and end my
What?
game. And so if like he was like if he wanted food or was annoyed that I wasn't paying attention, he would just walk up and like pop it with his nose, and like the game would be over. I was like, all right, well,
He would slowly turn and be like, "Father, I'm hungry, Father."
yeah, yeah.
That's incredible.
He was a delight. But this really has gone off the rails, even by my standards, which are pretty
That's
loose.
an effect I have on people. I don't know if it's good or bad yet.
It's great. I like it a lot. I don't like rails. I have no idea how to turn this back. Also, I can't read one of my notes. I have shorter episodes, and then underneath it, I have AGADY, and I have no idea what I was trying to spell there.
AGADY. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
A goblin, something, right?
It may have been I wrote a goblin. And that was the end of my thought process. I was like, next question. It was probably just that you were the only goblin. I know Amy told me how many episodes there's like 20-ish episodes in the season, if I recall correctly.
Yes, I think so. It's hard for me to know because we kind of did like episodes back to back sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes those plays like kind of roll into each other. So I think it's 20, but don't quote me. I have no idea.
Yeah. 20 episodes. As you said, some guest characters coming in. I'm hoping playing minions as well, or are you getting like fresh adventurers coming in, like rockin' level 20 people, or is it all under wraps, can't tell anything?
I don't know if it's under wraps, but I can assure you that like nobody coming into Goblin Mode is going to be like the coolest person. Well, actually, that's not true. You know what? That's not true at all. I would say the people that do come into our show are really cool and make us seem even more weak and pathetic.
Exactly what you want in a guest.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah,
that's so funny. I can't wait to see that. Yeah, the first 3 episodes are out now, I believe, as of recording this.
Yeah.
And yeah, each new episode drops Geek and Sundry's YouTube channel as well as pod catching places on Mondays. Did I make that up? I think it's Mondays.
Mondays. The podcast drops at 9 a.m. Pacific Mondays on podcasts, and then anywhere you can listen to podcasts. And then the full episode airs on YouTube at noon Pacific time.
Perfect. Amazing. Jason, this has been such an absolute delight. I appreciate it so much, especially really talking about dogs and pigs. Like that's where I can really get into it.
Knowing you had a pig named Mortimer is going to be the thought that I have when I close my eyes and go to bed.
I'll give you this present then. At one point, we got a little like a hair clip and hot glued a top hat to it, so he could wear a top hat when he walked around.
Come on.
It's pretty good. I will attempt to email you the picture.
Please.
Please. Because I obviously have it, but I just have to find it. Yeah.
I will tape. If we get a season 2, I promise you, I will tape that picture to my little area, like I'm like an old World War II pilot. And it will be the fuel that keeps me going.
Incredible. If folks out there wanted to follow you, obviously they should already be following Geek and Sundry, and I bet they can figure out where Geek and Sundry is available, because that's an easy one. It's Geek and Sundry. But when folks wanted to follow you, where could they find you on the internets?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok, but you can find me mostly these days on Instagram at Jason Nguyen. My last name is Nguyen TV, so it's Jason Nguyen TV on Instagram.
Amazing. Jason, thank you so much. This has been an absolute delight. I can't wait I have one more episode of Kevin Can F Himself, and then I'm back on Goblin Mode, baby. That's the order of things. I gotta know how it ends. And then I'm back. But yeah, I'm so excited for the rest of this season. The first episode is so killer. And yeah, I mean, even talking to like Danielle said, like just keeps getting better, and I can't wait to see what comes next. So
I agree. It keeps getting better, and it keeps getting funnier, and I really hope people continue to watch. So thank you so much for watching.
Amazing. Awesome. Right. Thank you. Here's another one. I don't know how to end an interview, so I'm just gonna hit stop recording.
That's fair too. That's fair too. I'm gonna go watch Kevin Can Have Himself as well.
It's a very good show. It's on Netflix now. Um,
All right.
um,